In 2018, an American political scientist predicted China would be stuck in the dangerous middle-income trap.
And China is running out of time.
But 6 years later, his prediction turned out to be exactly true.
Youth unemployment was almost 21%.
Now, the middle-income trap is a financial condition where developing countries witness fast economic growth at the beginning, but as they try to break towards a higher income economy, such as the United States, they remain stuck in the trap. The haunting truth is that the middle-income countries think that they're moving towards a powerful economy. They are innovating every day, their population is working extra hours, and their military looks more powerful than any other country in the world. But in reality, they're stuck in the same stage.
Youth unemployment has hit a record high.
For example, for decades, China's been well known for providing one of the cheapest labor in the world. This is why Apple profited from their workforce all this time. But even today, China is recognized for providing one of the cheapest labor forces in the world. Surprisingly, the middle-income trap is also a curse from which only a few countries have managed to come out. Specifically, there are only 23 countries that have been successful in breaking through the middle-income trap. Some of them include South Korea, Taiwan, United Arab Emirates, and Singapore. This can also be proven by the level of average income an individual earns in these countries. In 2012, the average income in China was around $6,000 and has increased to $12,500 in 2023. However, despite being a smaller country, the average income in South Korea has increased from $26,000 in 2012 to $34,000 in 2023. So how did the second largest economy in the world get stuck in a deadly middle-income trap? And can it get out of this trap in the future? But before we dive in, make sure that you subscribe to the Borderline Wisdom channel, and if you're not already, hit that notification bell so you never miss one of our episodes. Alright, so it all started after World War II, when China was under the great influence of socialism. By teaming up with the USSR in the period of the Cold War, it felt like the world might see a new oppressive socialist regime. But China stayed a complete dark horse, silently making its way up the charts in terms of GDP growth. The Red Dragon finally flashed up on the global stage in the year 1978, when President Deng Xiaoping brought in major economic reforms and opened the Chinese market to the international community. Due to the abundant availability of cheap Chinese labor at $2.70 per day, it turned out to be a major attraction for larger corporations. For example, in 1995, Samsung, which was one of the largest foreign investors, opened its headquarters in China. And 6 years later, in 2001, Apple also entered China by establishing its first production facility in the Zhengzhou region, where iPhones and iPads were assembled on a massive scale. The circumstances became more favorable when China finally joined the World Trade Organization, making it an essential part of the global market and a valuable trade chain. As China had a primary focus on becoming a manufacturing hub, with the availability of cheap labor, the country flourished to a point where its economy grew by 9% every year. Furthermore, the gains of manufacturing utopia led to a major development in the urban area, at the same time pushing poverty and infant hunger to an all-time low. Specifically, China lifted 800 million people out of poverty as they produced 95% of Apple products and 25% of Samsung's workforce by 2014. As a result, to search for a better standard of living, millions of people from rural areas immediately started to migrate to the urban cities, due to which China was finally able to jump out of the low-income level and shift towards medium-income group. Sure, it was a great achievement as it made China capable of competing with other countries. But then something happened that changed their entire future. Since Xi Jinping came to power, China's become more aggressive than ever. From dominating the South China Sea to controlling smaller nations through the Belt and Road Initiative, Xi has proven to be more dangerous than any previous Chinese leader. However, in pursuit of making China more powerful, he failed to realize how his decisions would impact their economy. After launching the zero-COVID policy during COVID, it backfired in a way that Xi Jinping never imagined. The rising anger from bankrupt real estate giant Evergrande, the shutdown of the area near the Apple factory, multiple COVID checkpoints in the logistics, supply chain issues, and a lack of labor due to rising infections. All of them combined to have a negative impact on its economy. Moving towards the export sector, China's manufacturing hub, Shanghai, is responsible for 40% of its exports. However, during the lockdown, 45% of trucking capacity was parked in the garage, which resulted in 80% of the ships being delayed, and an increase in the prices of products due to a shortage of supply. The situation became worse when China became the only country to extend its zero-COVID policy till December 2022. At the same time, the majority of the countries were already on their way to economic recovery. Not to mention, from 2020 to 2022, Beijing's logistics sector worked below capacity. As a result, 27 major brands like Dell, Nike, and HP are now abandoning China. Not to mention, Samsung has already closed its last factory in China. So, if foreign direct investment gets affected, then it directly impacts the average income of a citizen in the country. As a result, in 2023, FDI in China dropped by 80%, which was never witnessed in the last 30 years. Apple's favorite supplier shifted its base to India last year, where it opened its first iPhone assembly plant in Bengaluru. Surprisingly, this year Apple's iPhone exports have doubled. Other major factors that are stopping China from breaking through the middle-income trap is the falling birth rate. Sure, China's one-child policy in 1979 was required to control their resources. But after touching its peak in 1988, the falling birth rate is haunting China every single day. China even launched a two-child policy in 2016, just to ensure they can restore what they lost. However, nature's going against their wishes. As of today, out of the 1.41 billion population, more than 300 million of the Chinese population is above 60 years. This chart also shows that the highest amount of the Chinese population now falls within the 45 to 49 age group, an aging population that is failing to break through the trap. Turns out that China's one-child policy axed one of the biggest assets for the Chinese economy, as several Western countries invested in China because of the cheap labor. But now, with fast declining populations, companies are taking their manufacturing hubs out of the country. Now, China claims that it's one of the top countries when it comes to overall literacy rate. They even claim that China has a total literacy rate of 99%, which also supports several pieces of research that conclude that a rise in the literacy rate of a country directly correlates with the rise in per capita income in the country, because it makes them capable enough to innovate or come up with breakthrough products. However, if you compare China with high-income countries, then it spends one of the lowest of its GDP on education. Specifically, China's GDP spending on education has increased from 2.5% in the 1990s to just 4% in 2023. But in the case of countries like South Korea or Switzerland, they spend more than 15% of their GDP on education, and New Zealand ranks at number 1 with 21.6%. So what are your views about China's middle-income trap? Do you think they're cursed by their own one-child policy where baby girls were once left to die? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and press the like button if you like this video. Thank you so much for watching.